Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to review the movie The Substance, starring Demi Moore, Dennis Quaid, and Margaret Qualley. This is a highly disturbing movie. The visuals are unlike almost anything I've ever seen. It goes in a direction I expected, but at the same time, couldn't believe what I was seeing. But every single pixel on the screen served a purpose and had an important part in the storytelling. I want to start with the cast on this one because it was extremely well acted. Demi Moore is Elizabeth Sparkle, the lead character, and Margaret Qualley plays Sue, which is the younger version of Demi Moore's character, and Dennis Quaid plays Harvey, which is the head of the TV network. Basically, the synopsis of this movie is Demi Moore's character is Elizabeth Sparkle. She is a beloved aerobics instructor that's been on TV forever. And on her 50th birthday, the network decides it was time for her to go. She was aged out. They wanted something younger. They wanted something with a different look altogether. And right around this time, Demi Moore's character receives a black market drug called the Substance, which essentially, when you inject yourself with it, it splits your body in two. It creates a younger version of you, and you remain. And essentially, you are giving birth to this younger version of you straight through your back, but your consciousness can only be in one body at a time, and you have to supplement it. You can only be in one body for 7 days at a time before you have to switch back, or there's dire consequences, repercussions. This is a very confusing film in a good way. This is a film where I feel like it's definitely a passion project. I could tell that it was shot in a very deliberate way. I could tell that whoever wrote it directed it, because the meticulousness and the attention to detail within this movie could only come from obsession. The director is Coralie Fargo. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. I know it's French. She's known for the movie Revenge and Beyond Blood. And the cinematography in this movie is from Benjamin Krakun. The cinematography in this movie is outstanding, and it was extremely intentional. The writing and direction, you could tell the attention to detail in the dialogue, in the set dressing, in the color, in the camera work. Each and every part of this movie made me think, and also at some point in the movie, it became almost like a visual scavenger hunt, to where you're searching for clues to figure out where the film is going, because in a lot of ways it doesn't make any sense, and in other ways it makes perfect sense. So, spoiler alert, I'm going into some details about the movie. If you haven't seen it, now's not the time to listen. The film has one of my favorite opening sequences of all time. It starts off with an aerial shot of Elizabeth Sparkle's Hollywood star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And it's one of the most creative ways to show time passing. You see the seasons change, so it's raining, it's snowing. Across the star, you see people walking across it. You see people spilling things on it and cleaning it up. You see cracks start to form. And it was very symbolic of how how her celebrity is fading in Hollywood, how she's literally a dying star. And I just thought that was a really, really cool way to put that on screen, to tell a story without really having to say anything. There is a scene in the movie where she receives flowers right after she's done filming an episode, and the card said, "You were amazing." And the word were was very intentional. It was definite foreshadowing for the direction that her character's going in. And there's a ton of things like that throughout the entire movie. So right after she's fired from her job by Dennis Quaid, she runs to the restroom because she's obviously upset. And the women's restroom is out of order, so she goes in the men's restroom. And she's crying and she hears someone coming, so she hides in the stall. And Dennis Quaid walks in on the phone and he stands at the urinal and he's talking about her. He's talking about how they need someone younger, better, how she aged out, that she was past her prime, that type of thing. But he's saying this all while peeing in the urinal, but it's drip, 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 drip. He was having a difficult time peeing at the urinal, but yet he's still a man of power at his age, and she's fired because of her age. So it was a troubling reflection of how there's a difference in the entertainment industry between men and women and their value and their longevity. And I thought that was an interesting way of showing that from her point of view. I notice when Demi Moore is on screen that their choice of camera lens is also different. The perspective is warped a lot of the time when she's on screen as her older self. Everything comes to a point, almost like aging, like it shows an inevitable end at the end of her road. While Sue, the younger version, is more of an open frame to where you don't necessarily see an end at the horizon. And I thought that was very well done and a very creative way to once again separate the old and the young. I also noticed that it was very hard to tell what time period this was set in because there's old technology, old cars, new technology, new cars. And as you're watching the movie, it's confusing, but you see it's reflective of the old and the new once again. So the way that they approach this movie is that they're almost grooming you to have mixed feelings about getting older and mixed feelings about being younger. And during the scene where the younger version is being created and Demi Moore essentially gives birth out of her back to this newer version, it's one of the most grotesque and violent things I've ever seen on film. But it was so impactful that it almost shakes your concentration. And in the beginning of the movie, when they're talking about the substance, the drug, they inject an egg and you see the yolk split in two. And when she receives the substance, the packaging has the logo and it's two yellow circles. Also attention to detail, representing the two eggs, which I thought was pretty outstanding. And the studio, I thought this was like haunting irony. The studio put out a press release essentially saying who will be the next Elizabeth Sparkle. And the young version of the old Elizabeth Sparkle becomes the new Elizabeth Sparkle once again, which is just feeding her addiction to fame. But their personalities are very different. They're conflicted. It's almost like having two different puppet masters. And so essentially there becomes a power struggle between the old and the young, but the old and the young can affect the other one in a negative way. And it becomes a battle for power. Do I want fame and stardom and everything that I've always wanted at the expense of my older self, or can I just be happy with who I am? And that's really the internal struggle for most of the movie. There's a scene where you see Demi Moore drinking a Diet Coke, and the way they framed it was like the old Diet Coke commercials of the late 80s and early 90s. the just for the taste of it moments. And it's funny because Demi Moore was actually in one of those commercials. So I think there's a lot of parallels with Demi Moore's character in this movie and her real life, because there's moments where she's acting, but you kind of see real pain. You kind of hear real struggle, and you almost start to have empathy towards her in real life because there are so many parallels, and you're really getting to see it from a destructive point of view. I don't think unless you're in her position, you could truly understand what she's going through, but this was really a way to show, the villain of the story is essentially time. You can even see Demi Moore, the difference between the older and younger version, how they look at a clock, how they understand time. Demi Moore hears the ticking of every second. It gives her anxiety. It makes her upset. While Sue, the younger version, most of the time doesn't even notice that 7 days has passed, and she's genuinely surprised when it's time to switch back. The creativity in this movie, I have to say, halfway through the movie, I stopped and I said out loud, this has to be a French director. I didn't know who directed it at first, but it had to be a French director, just because of the approach of the movie, the attention to detail, the abstract approach, the gutsy chances that they take with camera angles and practical effects. And it just had a very French tone to it. And I looked it up, and sure enough, that was correct. The director is a risk taker, and she definitely pushes boundaries in a very good way. I will say that the end of the movie had some predictability, but seeing the actual visuals of this movie took a big toll on me. And I think the best way I can describe it without giving too much away is the ending of this movie is very much like Tusk, the movie from Kevin Smith, mixed with a Gwar concert. And if you don't know who Gwar is, look up the band Gwar on YouTube, and you'll kind of get an idea of what I'm getting at. The visuals were harsh, very well done. The director really created a visual representation of the self-destructive measures we as humans will go to hold on to youth or fame. The movie really shows how quickly you can be replaced and how time is really the enemy of anything beautiful. And time matters, and people are inherently selfish to a degree where, they self-sacrifice or they implode. I will say that this film kind of came across as someone's nightmare brought to life, and they shared it with the world, so now it gets to be everyone else's nightmare. But it was a super unique watching experience, and you could tell it came from a place of passion. The only thing I have to say semi-negative about this movie is that I think sometimes it's a little too literal in its interpretation. I think that the movie could play more into suggestion in certain circumstances. When it comes to something scary, in my opinion, shadows go a long way when creating fear of a monster. But in this movie, we see every frame, every bit of the ugliness. But honestly, that may have been the point. I thought the movie was very, very good, very well executed. I think the technical ability of the crew was amazing, and the acting was exceptional. This may be the best acting performance of Demi Moore's career, and that's saying a lot. And I think this movie is really great for the genre, and I am looking forward to the next monumental movie that this director puts out. I'm very excited to see it. So my rating for this movie is 3.5 stars. So if you guys want me to review anything, leave a comment below and like and subscribe so I can grow the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.